Drugs. They've been around us for countless years. They've been an area of political and moral controversy. It is no mystery that today more and more teens are getting a hold of drugs and using it to gain popularity, friends, or to deal with life-altering stress. Some find it a way to get away from family problems. Others find it as a gateway to distract themselves from academic struggles. The Colorado Marijuana Legalization Initiative in 2012 sent the use of drugs between minors skyrocketing. Never before had it been so easy to purchase drugs for minors. This propelled more and more minors into getting their daily fix for drugs. The popularity aspect of it has practically made electronic cigarettes what they are today. More and more teens are getting a hold of these things, creating stricter and stricter school policies, which will eventually be one of the reasons why students will not be accountable and trustworthy.
For me, when I was a teenager, I used drugs, I drank. I pretty much tried whatever was out there, but I was in Hawaii and it was a pretty relaxed place. And I was lucky that I did not get addicted, except to cigarettes, which took me a long time to kick. But it does seem as if the speed with which you can get hooked on opiate-based
a prevention specialist for the Roaring Fork School District, and I'm in Glenwood Springs, and we're working on preventing any kind of self-harm or community harm that comes from drugs, alcohol, suicidal ideology, issues that are around violence, family structure, family issues, things like that. I'm 100% committed to helping kids be safe and healthy. And part of that has come from years and years and years of interacting with kids who broke my heart, really. And our community has lost a lot of kids to addiction. We've lost kids to suicide, we've lost kids to overdose, we've lost kids to crime. And again, a lot of kids come out of that. Some kids don't. And a few go in so deeply that we can never get them back. And so those kids, I actually have their photographs and, things that they've written over the years, stories they've told in a very sacred place in my life. And they inform my work. And sometimes what I see is actually kids coming back in their 30s and 40s, picking up the phone and calling me and saying, man, I am in so deep, now my kids are in trouble. We never stepped back from this, and it's taken over my life. Everybody has their own story. Research indicates that kids who are predisposed genetically and then have any kind of a trauma history are more likely to have early onset of experiences. So if kids are exposed to drugs and alcohol really young, their brains are not fully developed, as you probably know, and then that impact is much
number one,
harder.
Our attendance rate has risen every single year that I've been here, which is a huge thing. I think that shows that our culture and climate, this is a place that everyone wants to be, which I love. See as much of it here on our school campus. We do hear a lot of it through our other channels and a lot of our support systems here. So we are really lucky here at Roaring Fork High School that we have our school-based health clinic. We also have
through a lot of that, we're able to provide a lot of support for students who are wanting to make good choices. So we have a lot of that, as well as through our disciplinary, if you're caught here on school property with any controlled substances as well. So through a variety of means, we're able to see what our students are involved in. I think that immediately, yes, we did have a higher incidence of students who had illegal substances, and specifically marijuana, on campus. Though actually then now in more recent years, we've seen a decline again.
Since about the age of 4, I always knew I wanted to be a police officer. My dad had some police officer friends that would come over to the house on occasion. They worked in the district, and I just remember just sitting there looking at them going, that's what I want to do. And I've always wanted to help people, and that's what I've done my entire life. Served my community or my country in one uniform or another. I've never tried drugs, never tried marijuana. I was in sports, I was in the military. I didn't have the money for drugs growing up, so I never tried anything. That's about it. meth labs where we would get kids out of meth labs, try to get them help, because they got the secondary exposure. They were in some just really bad environments, and, it's really sad to see the parents of how should I say this? The drug has taken over the parent's life so bad that they can't even take care of the kid. We had one kid, the task force was watching a house, we're getting ready to do a search warrant, and this kid kept coming out to the sidewalk, looking up and down the street, and he's wearing like a costume. They couldn't figure out what the kid was doing. And he'd go back in, he'd come out, go back in, did this for extended period of time. Well, we finally hit the house, and turned out the kid was dressed for a Halloween party for school, and his parents were crashed out. They weren't awake. They didn't care what he was doing. He wanted to go to school. He didn't know how to tell time, but he knew he had to be outside for the bus, and he didn't know where to go for the bus, but he didn't want to miss it, so he kept coming in and out. Later, we hit a house, and it was a knock and talk, and turned out we found a meth lab, and the kid was carrying his mask around, and he was getting ready to go to a Halloween party the next day, and we had to, we took everything he owned because everything was contaminated, and we as detectives, we all pitched in and, helped him. We bought a costume for him and everything else that wasn't contaminated, so at least he can go to school with something. The use of drugs it diminishes the kid's capacity to learn. It slows down brain function, slows down the social aspect they have with their peers. They'll find that small group of peers that are also into the drugs, and that's who they'll be with, and they isolate themselves. We see it. I was also a school resource officer, and one of the schools I was responsible for was really heavy into, the students were really heavy into prescription drugs. They would steal from their parents, their grandparents, things like that. And most of the time they didn't even know what they were taking. They were just taking drugs because they just didn't know.
Our biggest hope is that we prevent early use, and we encourage deep understanding and information.
Make mistakes, and it's how you deal with those mistakes that defines you, not the mistakes that you make. But I do think that it's very, very difficult to recover from a mistake like that and have almost no impact scholastically. I think that pretty much all of our students who have those impacts do have some scholastic impact as well.
The society growing, it seems like the problem is growing. I don't see the drugs going away. We're trying to plug little holes in a dike and just trying to save our citizens. It's just getting worse, I think, when it comes down to it. I'm seeing more and more. Maybe it's the job I'm in. Maybe it's how I recognize the users. Just driving down the street, going to the grocery store, wherever I can pick out the users, and it's sad. It's sad to see, but I don't see it going away. But we need to work as hard as we can to try to educate our citizens and our students and our children of the dangers and what it's doing to not only their lives, their families' lives, but their health, their mental health, their physical health.